Now, the American President Donald Trump has held a phone call with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping. The two leaders have spoken to each other for the third time this year. The conversation, which is being watched very closely by the world, marks the latest efforts by the two rivals to try and stabilize their relationship. The two leaders had a wide range of different topics to discuss during their phone call. Their main focus was, of course, to discuss the three T's. There is tariffs, Taiwan and TikTok. High on the agenda is the future of the TikTok app in the United States, which the American President Donald Trump has spoken about during his state visit to the United Kingdom. Now, Trump said that he likes the app, which has greatly helped him during his presidential campaign, and will speak about a deal with Xi Jinping.
So what we're doing, and we're speaking to President Xi on Friday to see if we can finalize something on TikTok, because there is tremendous value, and I hate to give away value, but I like TikTok. It helped get me elected. In fact, Charlie said, "Sir, you ought to get on TikTok. You'd be great." I said, "Really? Tell me about TikTok." And we, as you know, we did unbelievably well with youth.
Now, the China-based company has refused to sell by the deadline of the 19th of January, meaning that the ban is technically in place. However, Trump's government has not yet enforced it, with the president extending the deadline several times. On Tuesday, Trump signed an executive order that again extended the ban deadline until the 16th of December. The telephone talks also come as the two world's biggest economies are seeking to find a compromise on tariffs. Now, both sides dramatically hiked tariffs against each other during a months-long dispute earlier this year, disrupting the global supply chains. Washington and Beijing then reached a deal to reduce the levies, which expires in November, with the United States imposing 30% duties on import of Chinese goods and China hitting the American products with 10% tariffs. Now, lastly, the issue of Taiwan, marking a clear U-turn in its policy towards Taiwan. The United States has halted military aid to the self-governing island that China claims is its own territory. And according to a report published in the Washington Post, the Trump administration has halted a shipment to Taiwan worth about $400 million that includes munitions and autonomous drones, and the decision could still be reversed. The move comes as China's defense minister has renewed threats that his country would take over the self-ruled Taiwan as he's opened a security forum in Beijing on Thursday. Now, Beijing says that restoration of Taiwan to China is an integral part of the post-war international order. All right, now joining us on the broadcast, we've got our correspondent Susan Tehrani, who's joining us live from New York. Susan, this is a very crucial phone call, the third one this year between Donald Trump and Xi Jinping. Now, give us a sense as to what is actually riding on this phone call.
So, as you mentioned, a very important phone call indeed. First of all, it also comes before possibly a face-to-face meeting between Xi Jinping and President Trump somewhere in Asia. While Xi Jinping has invited President Trump to China, there is talk that they may actually see each other at a summit in South Korea prior to that. Of course, President Trump has extended his invitation to Xi Jinping as well. TikTok is going to play very heavy on this phone call, and some analysts believe that China is willing to give up its U.S. assets, about 80% of TikTok, to a consortium of U.S. companies, because at this point, it appears that TikTok isn't as important as it was for China, and they're willing to give this win to Donald Trump in order to hopefully gain some favors, as you mentioned, on tariffs, on technology, and also on the issue of Taiwan. Now, it's also important to note that China has also signaled that they may sort of find a deal on buying American soybean, again, according to President Trump, and also Boeing aircraft. We don't know the exact content of this phone call as of now. There haven't been readouts, and we don't know whether or not, when this agreement is reached, what the details of the agreement with TikTok is. Remember, even people within President Trump's own party are concerned that TikTok and China may hold on to that very influential algorithm that has always been a problem and then give, something else to the U.S. run companies. Nonetheless, there is a lot of eyes on what this deal actually entails. And of course, President Trump will try to frame this as a win for the United States and for America, while China hopes this provides a pathway to get more incentives on trade, technology, and of course, Taiwan.
Indeed, it's going to be very interesting to see as to what the upshot of this meeting will be. Thank you very much indeed, Susan Tehrani, for joining us from New York. We'll of course come back to you once we have more details as to what has in fact been spoken about and what has potentially been agreed upon between the two leaders. For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.